This episode is supported in part by CuriosityStream. So 9 years ago, I was on the Great Barrier Reef getting my scuba diving certification. First, you dive for a couple of days in a pool before you venture out into the ocean. When it was time for my first ocean dive, we went through our checklist, making sure we had all of our equipment, it was on properly, we checked our buddies' equipment, and then we jumped in. Over the next 5 minutes or so, we descended down to about 18 meters, which is about 60 feet, and then I ran out of air. When we're preparing for somewhat treacherous activities, we always prepare for the worst case scenario. And then when it happens, we know what to do. Running out of air sounds terrifying in hindsight, but it happened after days of training, of learning sign language and what to do in worst case scenarios. So I swam over to my buddy, signaled that I had no air, and grabbed their spare regulator. I started breathing again. I didn't freak out or have a panic attack. I just fell back on my training and did what I'd been instructed to do. We gradually rose to the surface, to the comfort of air, and from that day on, I always triple check the air in my tank. This is a pretty extreme scenario, but one that can happen in many different environments. Fast forward a few years, and I read this book by Chris Hadfield. You probably remember him as the astronaut from the amazing Space Oddity video. He offers lessons from space and the International Space Station that you can apply to life, like planning for the unknown and uncertainty. And when I was reading this, I didn't realize I was about to enter the most uncertain period of my entire life.
Now, nobody really likes uncertainty, but we all experience it. And some people have a higher tolerance for uncertainty than others.
In the book I mentioned, Chris Hadfield talks about receiving a lot of training for every conceivable scenario of things that could go wrong in the International Space Station. So, if there was a fire on board, they would know how to respond to the alarm calmly, isolate the different sections of the spacecraft to avoid damage, and extinguish the fire without their heartbeat increasing by a single beat per minute.
On Earth, our uncertain situations are a little different.
Perhaps you're finishing school, or you're in an uncertain relationship, or you're concerned you'll lose your job. Science shows that we all have a different tolerance for uncertainty, and I'm guessing an astronaut's is very high.
And to explore yours, I want you to imagine a scenario.
I am giving away an envelope of money. And if you put your hand up to win this envelope, there's a 50% chance that you could take it home. Now, I'm going to announce the winner today. But there's always a twist. I'm giving away a second envelope of money too. Now, this one, you have a higher chance of winning. You have a 70% chance of taking this home, but I will be giving it away at a later date, sometime in the future. You have no idea when. So, which envelope do you choose? 50% now or 70% later? For the best outcome, you should always choose the larger reward where you have the largest chance of receiving it. But if you can't deal with uncertainty, or if you have a lower tolerance for risk, you will always choose the smaller reward where you find out about it today. This was done in a 2011 study where the researchers found people who had a high intolerance of uncertainty, they couldn't deal with uncertainty, chose the immediate reward that was less probable and smaller. A fear of uncertainty can lead us to make decisions that are not in our own best interest.
We often react to uncertainty by freaking out, by panicking and taking the fastest or easiest option out. This isn't surprising because uncertainty is stressful and we just want it to end.
And uncertainty can be even more stressful when we know the outcome will be bad. There was this other study where people received a small but unpleasant electric shock. But in scenarios where people were unsure whether they would receive a shock or not, people's stress levels were the highest. People would rather receive an electric shock than be uncertain about it. And I can really relate to that now.
Rewind back to when I finished reading that book. I was about to leave a really stable job I had with Australia's science agency. I was about to leave a country that offered free healthcare and start my own business halfway around the world. I wanted to pursue a career on YouTube, which, as I soon realised, is filled with extreme ups and downs and a ton of uncertainty. I took a chance that was not the easiest option. In recent years since I moved, I've had to deal with a lot of uncertainty, like applying for working permits almost every year and not being sure if I'd actually get them, having to move houses, waiting for mystery medical bills, and having work contracts end. But through all of this, I've learned how to deal with uncertainty pretty well and how to stay positive. There are some insights from both space and Earth that we can all use to embrace uncertainty, or at least deal with it a little bit better. First, it's important to identify which of our uncertainty worries can be tackled with problem solving and which worries are about things that you just have no control over. Focusing on the things you can change may help you feel more in control. And then, for things that are difficult to control, I tend to think through potential outcomes and form a few contingency plans. If my work contract isn't renewed, I'll do X or Y or Z to deal with it. This helps you prepare for the worst outcomes, so you have an action plan, however vague it may be, if they do happen. The reason I ran out of air when I was diving is because my instructor handed me an empty tank, and because he gave it to me, I didn't think to check it. And then my buddy missed the check, and then when we were going to jump off the boat captain also forgot to check my tank. There were 4 points where this should have stopped, but they all failed. And as a result, I only had enough air to descend. And practice was what got me through it. Uncertainty in all of our lives is inevitable. There will be some situations that you thought you could control that you can't, and times where you kind of feel like you're running out of air. Practice and planning can help you deal with it, but most importantly, we can learn to appreciate what we can control in life. Now, if you want to explore space from the comfort of the atmosphere in your home, you can do that with Stephen Hawking in Stephen Hawking's Favourite Places. It's on CuriosityStream, who is the sponsor of today's video. They're a subscription streaming service with thousands of documentaries, non-fiction titles and originals from some of the world's best filmmakers. For you guys, the first 30 days are completely free if you sign up at curiositystream.com/BrainCraft and use the promo code BrainCraft during the sign-up process. Thanks. As always, a special thank you to everyone who supports me on Patreon, especially my top tier patrons, Jason Schonenberg and Jack Tabor. See you next time.